All right, I'm going to read Mirette on the High Wire by Emily Arnold McCulley. 100 years ago in Paris, when theaters and music halls drew traveling players from all over the world, the best place to stay was at the Widow Gatteau's, a boarding house on English Street. Acrobats, jugglers, actors, and mimes from as far away as Moscow and New York reclined on the widow's feather mattresses and devoured her kidney stews. Let's get a little closer here. Madame Gâteau worked hard to make her guests comfortable, and so did her daughter Mirette. The girl was an expert at washing linens, chopping leeks, paring potatoes, and mopping floors. She was a good listener, too. Nothing pleased her more than to overhear the vagabond players tell of their adventures in this town and that along the road. Now I'm wondering the word vagabond, what that might mean. Well, then I think, okay, what evidence tells us vagabond players tell their adventures in this town and that along the road? So that tells me vagabond players travel a lot. They go to different towns and to have different adventures. One evening, a tall, sad-faced stranger arrived. He told Madame Gâteau he was Bellini, a retired high-wire walker. "I am here for a rest," he said. "I have just the room for you, Monsieur Bellini, in the back where it is quiet," she said. "But it's on the ground floor with no view." "Perfect," said the stranger. "I will take my meals alone." The next afternoon, when Mirette came for the sheets, there was the stranger crossing the courtyard on air. Mirette was enchanted. Of all the things a person could do, this must be the most magical. Her feet tingled as if they wanted to jump up on the wire beside Bellini. There are the sheets that are being dried out in the wind, and there he is, walking on the wire. Mirette worked up the courage to speak. "Excuse me, Monsieur Bellini, I want to learn to do that," she cried. Bellini sighed. That would not be a good idea," he said. "Once you start, your feet are never happy again on the ground." "Oh, please teach me," Mirette begged. "My feet are already unhappy on the ground." But he shook his head. Look at that. He's just sitting on that wire. Wouldn't you fall off if you did that? Mirette watched him every day. He would slide his feet onto the wire, cast his eyes ahead, and cross without ever looking down, as if in a trance. Trance means like you stare at it like you're hypnotized. He doesn't see anything else. Finally, she couldn't resist any longer. When Bellini was gone, she jumped up on the wire to try it herself. Her arms flailed like windmills. In a moment, she was back on the ground. Bellini made it look so easy. Surely she could do it too if she kept trying. I love how the cat's like, "What?" In 10 tries, she balanced on one foot for a few seconds. In a day, she managed 3 steps without wavering. Finally, after a week of many, many falls, she walked the length of the wire. She couldn't wait to show Bellini. Wow, she must have a lot of bruises on her bottom. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "In the beginning, everyone falls. Most give up. But you kept trying. Perhaps you have talent as well." "Oh, thank you," said Mirette. She got up 2 hours earlier every day to finish her chores before the sun shone in the courtyard. The rest of the day was for lessons and practice. Bellini was a strict master. "Never let your eyes stray," he told her day after day. "Think only of the wire and of crossing to the end." Now that explains why it says he was in a trance, where he's so focused He thinks of nothing else but his skill. When she could cross dozens of times without falling, he taught her the wire walker's salute. Then she learned to run, to lie down, and to turn a somersault. I will never fall again, Mirette shouted. Do not boast, Bellini said, so sharply that Mirette lost her balance and had to jump down. You know what I noticed? You noticed how, as she was using her shoes, her boots, but now she's gone barefoot. I wonder if that helps. One night, an agent from Astley's Hippodrome in London rented a room. He noticed Bellini on his way to dinner. What a shock to see him here, he exclaimed. See who? Asked a mime. Why, the great Bellini. Didn't you know he was in the room in the back? Bellini? The one who crossed Niagara Falls on a 1,000-foot wire in 10 minutes? Asked the mime. You know what's funny? Is mimes are known for being completely quiet. They don't say anything as they do their act. Did you notice? Oops, sorry about that. Did you notice he's the one doing all the talking? And on the way back, stopped in the middle to cook an omelette on a stove full of live coals. Then he opened a bottle of champagne and toasted the crowd, the agent recalled. My uncle used to talk about that, said a juggler. So you can see him up on the wire doing those amazing tricks. How did he get a cannon up there? Bellini crossed the Alps with baskets tied to his feet, fired a cannon over the bull ring in Barcelona, which is in Spain, walked a flaming wire wearing a blindfold in Naples, which is in Italy. The man had the nerves of an iceberg, the agent said. Mirette raced to Bellini's room. Is it true? She cried. You did all those things? Why didn't you tell me? I want to do them too. I want to go with you. I can't take you, said Bellini. But why not? Asked Mirette. Bellini hesitated a long time. Because I am afraid, he said at last. Mirette was astonished. Afraid? She said, but why? You notice the italics makes the text a little bit slanty. That tells you it's with emphasis, which she's using her voice to maybe show strong emotion. Once you have fear on the wire, it never leaves, Bellini said. But you must make it leave, Mirette insisted. I cannot, said Bellini. Mirette turned and ran to the kitchen as tears sprang to her eyes. She had felt such joy on the wire. Now Bellini's fear was like a cloud, casting its black shadow on all she had learned from him. Back to her old chores. Bellini paced his room for hours. It was terrible to disappoint Mirette. By dawn he knew that if he didn't face his fear at last, he could not face Mirette. He knew what he must do. The question was, could he succeed? Can we predict what he'll do next? That night, when the agent returned, Bellini was waiting for him. The agent listened to Bellini's plan with mounting excitement. I'll take care of it, he promised. To himself, he added, a big crowd will make me a tidy profit. What luck, I just happen to be in Paris now. Bellini went out to find a length of hemp, which is a type of rope, with a steel core. He borrowed a winch and worked until daylight, securing the wire. I wonder what a winch means. What does that mean, to work until daylight to secure the wire? See there at night. Can you guess what he's going to do? Pretty obvious. However, how do you get that rope from one end to the other? I wonder if the winch is important. The next evening, Mirette heard the commotion in the street. Go and see what it is, her mother said. Maybe it will cheer you up. In the square was a hubbub. A hubbub, what's that mean? Well, doesn't look like a weird monster or something. A hubbub means people are excited, they're making noises, they're curious. So there's a crowd. The crowd was so thick she couldn't see at first that the agent was aiming a spotlight at the sky. Return of the great Bellini, he was yelling. Could it be? Mirette's heart hammered in her chest. You ever felt that before, where your heart is beating so hard? You can feel it? That look on her face. Bellini stepped out onto the wire and saluted the crowd. He took a step and then froze. The crowd cheered wildly, but something was wrong. Mirette knew at once what it was. For a moment, she was as frozen as Bellini was. I wonder why he's afraid. I wonder why. Then she threw herself at the door behind her, ran inside, up flight after flight of stairs, and out through a skylight to the roof. Can you predict what she's going to do next? Yep, if that's what you thought. She stretched her hands to Bellini. He smiled and began to walk toward her. She stepped onto the wire, and with the most intense pleasure, as she had always imagined it might be, she started to cross the sky. Bravo! Bravo! Roared the crowd. Protégé of the great Bellini, shouted the agent. Protégé means in French means protect or protected. But a protege is someone who is like a learner, someone who is being trained to replace that person eventually. So they're being trained. So they're saying that she is like his assistant or the learner that he's teaching. He, as in the agent, was beside himself, already planning the world tour of Bellini and Mirette. As for the master and his pupil, which is another word for student, they were thinking only of the wire and of crossing to the end. On the last page, what do you notice? Interesting. Okay. Now, one thing that's cool about this book is that there is actually a sequel called Starring Mirette and Bellini. And so that is pretty interesting. All right. Thank you for listening. Hopefully, you'll use this to help you answer some important questions.